Welcome to Dawgs versus All Y'all, a weekly college football podcast where we discuss not only my favorite team, the Georgia Bulldogs, but we talk all things college football, hence all y'all. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and look us up on Instagram at SuplexDinnerClub. And go Dogs. Yo, what's happening, y'all? Welcome back to another episode. This past weekend, we had some great games, great matchups, and some surprising results. Some teams, their playoff push is still on the rise, while others absolutely destroyed. We're going to definitely update our hunting season 12. Who are the 12 best teams in college football? And I got to talk about it. We got to talk about a star player's reaction to the end of the game, and more importantly, our reaction as fans to players. Thank you again for checking us out. Now let's get it.
It is good! And another classic!
Not all critique is hate, but not all hate is critique. That's what we're going to talk about today. USC lost to Utah 34-32. Last second victory to the Utes. Terrific game. High stakes, high drama. That game was college football at its finest. As Utah is driving for what will eventually become a game-winning field goal, Fox continues to pan to quarterback Caleb Williams. And you see him on the sideline. And he doesn't look his confident self. In fact, he looks nervous. He looks a little worried. And then as soon as they make that game-winning kick, they show Caleb again. And Caleb looks sick. He looks upset. He looks disappointed. And they continue to show him. In between shots of the Utah players celebrating, in between showing the coach enjoying himself, high fives and hugs and all of this, they continuously show Caleb on the sideline. They continue to show a heartbroken Caleb Williams. And it's understandable. It's absolutely understandable. Now me, being a college football fan, being a former member of college football Twitter, you know I gotta check the Twitter streets and see what the streets is talking about after this game, after this classic game. And I see a lot of fan backlash on Caleb and his reaction. I see a lot of critique, but I see a lot of hate. A lot of hate. He should have gotten up and took his loss graciously. He should have been shaking everyone's hands. It is what it is. That's part of the game and all of this. I see that. I hear that. Cool. But I didn't see Caleb on the sideline the same way some of you saw Caleb on the sideline. That look of frustration, that wasn't a spoiled brat pouting like some of you said. That wasn't a sore loser. I didn't see that. What I saw was a very talented quarterback. In fact, talented enough to have won the Heisman Trophy the previous season, facing disappointment, heartbreaking disappointment. Now, let's go back a little bit. What was Caleb's goals this season? His goal this season wasn't, I want to put up all these numbers and win the Heisman. Hey, he did that last year. What was his goals this year? His goal was to win a national championship. His goal was to get better over the offseason, add more weapons to his team, which they did, and improve what's already a highly explosive offense, which they did, and win a national championship. That was his goal. Yeah, sure. Win another Heisman Trophy? For sure. That's definitely on the list. That's something that's only been done once. Of course, he wanted to do that. But ultimately, the number one thing on Caleb Williams' mind and heart was winning a national championship. So when I see Caleb on the sideline, looking at the sky, looking up, basically saying, "Why, God, why?" That was disappointment. That was heartbreak, gut-wrenching heartbreak. That's what I saw. What I also saw when I'm looking at that reaction, what I also saw when I look at a reaction like that, I see a highly competitive, talented guy who's probably going to be the number one overall draft pick be put in a position to go win a game. And guess what? He did what he was supposed to do to win the game. He scored a touchdown. He scored the go-ahead touchdown. He did what he was supposed to do. But he had to depend on a defensive unit that has disappointed that team. I'm sure they've disappointed the coaches, and I know for a fact they've disappointed that fan base all season. I see a quarterback who's thinking in his head that the reason why we didn't make the playoff last year was our defense. So what do we do in the offseason? We go to the transfer portal. We add some guys. We add a Bear Alexander from Georgia, one who was ejected. He was ejected at the end of this game. And my heart does hurt for Bear for that. Because even though he left my team, you hate to see someone in the game not being able to compete. You hate to see that. Back to Caleb. You see a quarterback who's led his team to the go-ahead touchdown, and it's basically a minute 50. You're leaving it up to your defense with a minute 50 to make a stop, to make a single stop to end this game. You're depending on a defense to make a stop against a team that beat you twice last year. That frustration, that disappointment, that heartbreak, that's what I saw when I saw Caleb on that sideline. I think we need to check ourselves in terms of empathy. I get it. You see Caleb, he's having the time of his life. He won the Heisman last year. He's on God knows how many commercials. We see him between him and Coach Prime. We see him in every damn commercial during these college football games. You read reports of what kind of money he's making through NIL and all of this, to the point where he's like, hey, I don't have to go to the NFL because I'm making money. I can always come back and make money. Or you hear these guys talking about Caleb dictating what team he's going to, even though that's nothing new. Shout out to Eli Manning. Shout out to the great John Elway. Shout out to Bo Jackson. Like, this is nothing new. And I get it's very difficult to show empathy to someone who is seeming or who is privileged, highly privileged. But I need y'all to understand this. If you've performed in any kind of competitive sport or competition, you don't even have to play a sport. If you're if you are on the debate team, if you ran for office, hell, if you're a soccer dad and you want in your head you're competing to have the best after game snacks, that level of competition, crank that up times 100. That's the kind of competitive nature that makes a player like Caleb Williams. And sure, he may rub some people off the wrong way. I know the fingernails thing was eccentric, but these are kids and they're competitive. Show some empathy before you offer critique, which turns into hate for a lot of us. Check yourself. That kid is coming off of a loss against Notre Dame, which was heartbreaking enough, with still a shot to make the playoff, because a one-loss team can make the playoff as long as they're impressive enough. But you lose to a team that beat you twice last year. You put together a game in the fourth quarter. You put together a drive in the fourth quarter to win that game. Sure, some plays went your way. That pick six definitely put them back into the game. But Caleb led his team to a touchdown, the go-ahead touchdown. Your defense should have made a stop. This shouldn't even be a discussion. USC should have won that game, but they didn't. And that's heartbreaking. I'm a Georgia fan. It's heartbreaking to me because I understand and know the kind of competitive nature is required to win a game. Man, shout out to Utah. Shout out to those players. They put together a great game. Coach Whittingham I've said this multiple times, he's one of the best coaches in college football. He's playing a brand of football that you rarely see out there. Shout out to those players. Shout out to that safety who plays damn near every position on that team. It's kind of like watching a high school game where it's like, yo, he's the best player. We're going to keep him on the field. Shout out to him. Shout out to Barnes. Shout out to that last scramble to get that field goal in even better position. That field goal attempt in better position. That was a great win for Utah. But we as fans, we gotta check ourselves because it's a very thin line between critique and hate. Not all critique is hate, but not all hate is critique. If you haven't already, look us up on socials at SuplexDinnerClub. That's the home of 2 podcast projects that I work on. Mondays, Fridays, we talk college football on Dawgs versus All Y'all. We don't just talk about Georgia football. We talk about all things college football, hence All Y'all. And on Wednesdays, you know the vibes, Life and Times Pod, which is short for the Life and Times of a Restaurant Lifer podcast, where I have conversations with some cool and interesting people that I've met through my years in the hospitality industry. Let me know down below, what team are you representing? The Suplex Dinner Club family is growing, and I want to know more about you guys. Man, Saturday provided some drama and high stakes to these games. And obviously, it affected our ranking system. You know what time it is. Let's get to the list.
We ain't getting hunted, guys. We're doing the hunting, and hunting season's almost over. We only got one more chance to hunt, and we hunted tonight.
All right, our hunting season 12 starts with Utah. Utah is now your number 12 team in the nation. Now it's 3 straight against USC. It was a terrific game. If you didn't see it, check it out. They pulled out that victory the last second. They are our number 12 team. Number 11 team is Penn State, who took a heartbreaking loss to Ohio State. The offense never really got going for Penn State, ultimately cost them that game because the defense showed up. They made stops, but Drew Allar, man, he had a rough one. Number 10 is going to be Ole Miss, followed by number 9, the Oregon Ducks, who had a dominant win. The final score doesn't truly reflect how that game went. And they're still focused on running it back against Washington and hopefully making a playoff push. Our number 8 team had probably one of the most impressive second halves that I've seen in college football. Alabama dominated Tennessee. They went down at the half 20-7. Came back in the second half. From the start of the second half, they dominated Tennessee. Took care of business, and again are showing us all not to count out Tricky Nicky and the Crimson Tide of Alabama. So salute to those guys for taking care of business. They got a couple more challenges, but man, it's really looking like Alabama's going to be a one-loss team going into the SEC championship. Hopefully my guys are facing them. Number 7 team is going to be Texas. Hey, the Longhorns had a challenge on their hands from Houston. First and foremost, they didn't want to go play there. That's been long brewing beef over there, which we all love as fans. But Texas was challenged. They were challenged to the last quarter, last minute. Quinn Ewers got hurt off of a scramble. He took a nice hit, put him out the game. How long is Quinn Ewers going to be hurt? And even though Malik Murphy, their backup quarterback, is very talented, and I like him, can you depend on him to bring you some wins? Number 6 team is going to be Oklahoma. Speaking of challenges, man, Gus Malzahn and UCF, they went into Norman, Oklahoma with an upset on their mind. And for the most part, I believe that they were going to pull it off watching that game. They were moving the ball against Oklahoma. They were making certain stops. It looked like it was going to be a letdown, I'll be honest. But Oklahoma pulled it together. They made a critical stop of a 2-point conversion attempt by UCF, and Oklahoma pulled off the victory. And now an undefeated Oklahoma Sooners team is headed to face Kansas for a big noon kickoff. The number 5 team, speaking of another top team struggling, Washington. What happened? Arizona State came with the right game plan, created a number of turnovers. Probably most of those turnovers was Washington literally giving them the ball. And they made it a game throughout the entire contest. My question, how many of these teams, these upcoming opponents, are going to look at this tape and see the blueprint that Arizona State set out? I wouldn't count on Michael Penix having these type of games, but you never know. You never know. The number 4 team, one of the most impressive wins of the weekend, Ohio State. Their defense took care of business versus Penn State. Even though Kyle McCord didn't have the best game, he leaned on the best wide receiver in the country, someone that I'm going to go ahead and say, hey, this guy is a Heisman candidate, Marvin Harrison Jr., the best wide receiver in college football. Had another game over 150 yards receiving. He's literally the best wide receiver in the game. So with my guy Brock being hurt, I'm going to go ahead and say Marvin Harrison should be in New York. Best wide receiver in the country. The number 3 team, Florida State. This is the type of win that I want to see out of Florida State. I want to see them meet adversity and respond accordingly. Duke is a very talented team. Duke has beat up on a number of opponents, a number of teams that I wouldn't have just said, hey, that's a win. I'm still impressed with that Clemson win, even though we saw what Clemson did against Miami. Shout out to Dabo. Hopefully you lost those bandwagon fans that you were crying about. This was a very good win for Florida State. Shout out to them. They're still undefeated. They got a couple more quality opponents. Their pathway to the playoff is that much more clear. The number 2 team, the Georgia Bulldogs, we had an off week. Get some things together. Ready to beat up on some Gators. You know we're going to talk about that on Friday. And the number 1 team, the Michigan Wolverines. I said it a week ago, and I'm going to continue to say it. Michigan hasn't just beat teams. They beat up on teams. They've consistently bullied they've cleared every team on their schedule, even though they don't have a ranked win. And you can critique that. They've taken care of business. November is going to be interesting for Michigan. If Michigan is the team that they appear to be, they should have some great performances in November. because you have a string of interesting matchups, games that should provide them some adversity, of course. You got Penn State followed by Maryland, which is another talented team. And then, of course, the game versus Ohio State. Michigan has the pathway. They have the talent. They've been impressive, and they've been pretty good at sign stealing. That's crazy, but it is what it is. Michigan's been a very dominant team all season, and that's why they're the number one team in the hunting season 12. What team was the most impressive this past weekend? Y'all let me know in the comments. And that's a wrap on episode 29. Thank you guys for checking us out. Come back on Friday. You know we got to talk about, preview, and predict the Georgia-Florida game. I have another must-see game of the weekend. And if something else pops up in college football, you know we're going to talk about it. I appreciate the support. If you haven't already, like, comment, subscribe, look us up on social media. The family's growing. And of course, I got to shout out the Pod family. If you like professional wrestling talk, come check us out at We're All Marks Anyways podcast. We drop every Thursday. I've also been a part of Pushing Narratives past couple weeks with the homie Los. Shout out to him. We talk all sports, basketball, football, whatever's going on. I got to watch more NBA games now since I've been a part of this. So I'm not just out of the loop. It's not just college football for me. So shout out to them. They're a part of the Get Your Bars Off network. Check them out. Y'all have a wonderful week. I'll see you on Friday. Take care of each other. And as always, go Dogs.
Trust your preparation. No, your ass is prepared for this shit for fucking 365 days. I think about the fucking in that locker room. Think about getting our opportunity. All the shit you went through this week to get ready for this game. Now is when you pay the fucking price. You go out there with energy, enthusiasm. Ain't nobody supposed to be cautious. Ain't nobody supposed to be nervous about shit. Go out here and fuck their ass up. Don't think about scoreboard. Don't think about shit. You think about knocking the shit out of them. Did you hear what Box said on Monday? When I sat in that fucking meeting, I wanted to go fucking play right then. Tore your shit up out here. 2 years ago, fuck your shit up. Goddamn pride and joy tells me you fuck these guys up. You go play the right way. You play the right way. You knock their ass off. You stay off the fucking ground. You tackle the fucking man with the ball. The shit's easy. Look at the right shit. Punish their ass on offense and kick their ass on special teams, guys. It's about who the fuck we are. I believe in you. Let's go.